What if you could swim right alongside a sperm whale or walk with an elephant on the savannah? I mean, these are experiences that for most of us are pretty much impossible. But what if you could? And maybe more importantly, what if that virtual encounter could actually change how you feel about the real world? Today, we're diving into how virtual reality is being used not just for fun, but as this incredibly powerful tool to build a real connection with wildlife, and maybe even drive conservation. All right, so here's where we're headed. We're going to start by looking at a pretty fundamental challenge in conservation, a kind of psychological problem. Then we'll see how VR is being talked about as this empathy machine. From there, we'll take a world tour of some of the most jaw-dropping wildlife experiences out there, and then we'll dig into the science to see if all this virtual empathy actually works. We'll also see how it's being used in places like zoos, and finally, we'll take a peek at the future of immersive nature. So first things first, one of the biggest hurdles that conservationists face is, surprisingly, a psychological one. You see, when we hear about these massive environmental threats, thousands of animals at risk, whole ecosystems collapsing, it's actually really hard for us to feel a personal connection to it. I mean, think about it for a second. We hear a statistic like 1 million species are at risk of extinction. That number is so huge, it's so abstract that it almost doesn't feel real. We know it's bad, of course, but it doesn't always land an emotional punch. So why is that? Well, it turns out there's a name for this. It's a well-documented phenomenon called compassion fade. All the research shows that our brains are just wired to empathize more with a single, identifiable story than with a big, faceless group. It's just way easier to form an emotional bond with one struggling sea turtle than it is with a statistic about thousands of them. And that empathy gap, that's a huge problem when you're trying to inspire action or raise funds. And this is exactly where technology comes into the picture. For years now, people have called VR an empathy machine because of its unique ability to put you in someone else's shoes. Or, in this case, maybe someone else's flippers. The whole idea is to use this tech to close that emotional distance. The secret sauce here is a single word: presence. You see, unlike watching a documentary on a flat screen, VR actually tricks your brain into feeling like you are physically there, in that other location. And that sense of being there makes these faraway threats feel immediate and personal. It's what moves a problem from just being a concept in your head to something you can feel in your gut. So enough with the theory. What does the stuff actually feel like? Let's go on a little virtual world tour and check out some of the most stunning VR wildlife experiences out there, all of them designed to make you feel present, connected, and ultimately to make you care. First up, we're diving deep into the kelp forests of the Pacific with BBC Earth Life in VR. This comes from the same incredible team that made Blue Planet 2, and believe me, it shows. You're not just watching sea otters from a distance, you're an active participant. You're swimming right alongside them, and you get to understand firsthand how this incredible marine ecosystem really works. Next, we are off to the African savanna with the Wild XR platform. Now, this one is really cool because it's a conservation-led project that gives you a total behind-the-scenes look. You can get impossibly close to elephants, giraffes, and even the last few northern white rhinos, seeing the real conservation work that's part of their daily lives. Okay, from the heat of the savannah to the absolute freezing cold of Antarctica, National Geographic Explore VR literally puts you in the boots of an explorer. Your mission: kayak around massive icebergs and trek through a snowstorm to find a lost colony of emperor penguins. It's a real adventure that does a brilliant job of showing you both the beauty and the intense fragility of our planet's polar regions. Now, this next experience does something powerful. It shifts the focus to include people. Ecosphere, which was made with the WWF, takes you deep into the jungles of Borneo. But this story isn't just about the amazing orangutans. It really highlights the indigenous communities on the ground whose conservation work is making it possible for both people and wildlife to thrive side by side. Okay, this experience is a total game changer. In WolfQuest, you don't just see a wolf, you literally become one. This is a true ecological simulation. You have to hunt, find a mate, raise a family, all while trying to survive in a super realistic ecosystem. It's such a powerful lesson in what it really takes for a species to survive. And finally, this one really shows how the medium is evolving. The second season of Ecosphere, now made with the United Nations, moves away from just the wildlife spectacle and toward human-centric social impact. It takes us to Fiji, and it shows how local communities are using their own indigenous knowledge to build resilience against rising sea levels. It's a really important shift towards hope-based storytelling.
So these experiences feel incredible, they feel powerful. But does that feeling actually translate into any real-world action? I mean, the big question is, does all this virtual empathy actually work? Let's take a look at the science.
So check this out. A groundbreaking study in 2022 looked at exactly this question. In a project they called Shell, researchers had people embody a loggerhead sea turtle. And they didn't just see through the turtle's eyes. They sat in a special chair to mimic its posture, and they wore a haptic vest that would vibrate like a shell if they bumped into things. They swam around, ran into threats like plastic bags and boats, and then they measured how much money they donated to charity. And the results were, frankly, a blockbuster. The study concluded that this powerful feeling of embodiment, of truly becoming the animal, could not only offset but could actually reverse compassion fade. People who embodied that single turtle showed way more empathy and were more likely to donate than people who just saw a group of them. It's huge. But the story is a little more nuanced than that. A field experiment in Brazil compared a VR experience to just a standard 2D video. And interestingly, when it came to immediate donations right there on the spot, VR wasn't that much better. But here's the real kicker. 3 months later, the people who had the VR experience were far more likely to be actively looking up conservation content online. So VR's real power might not be in the immediate ask, but in planting a seed that grows into long-term engagement. And this technology isn't just stuck in university research labs anymore. It's now moving out into the public spaces where conservation education happens every single day, places like zoos and museums. Hey, remember that Wild XR platform from our world tour? Well, it has now grown into the world's largest library of 360-degree wildlife content. We're talking more than 300 unique experiences. That kind of scale is a total game changer for making these encounters accessible to everyone. And this is really where their mission shines. As you can see here, their library covers pretty much everything, from huge threatened animals like the northern white rhino to narrative documentaries like Giraffe Rodeo. They provide what they call public-proof solutions. Think super durable headsets and easy-to-use content management so that a zoo or a museum can deploy one of these powerful exhibits without needing a whole dedicated IT team. So where does all this go next? Well, the future probably isn't just about escaping into a completely virtual world. It's more about integrating the digital world with our real one through things like augmented and mixed reality. The next frontier is all about bringing nature to you. For example, the WWF Forests app uses augmented reality to place a vibrant jungle right in the middle of your living room. And with mixed reality, you could have a virtual terrarium with digital animals living right there on your actual coffee table. The key here is that this lowers the barrier to entry. You're no longer cut off from the world in a headset. You're making nature a seamless, integrated, and even a social part of your daily life.
Which, of course, brings us right back to our big question. The technology is getting more immersive, the science is showing that it has a real psychological impact, and access is expanding beyond our homes and into our public institutions. By letting us feel truly present with wildlife, to embody them, even if it's just for a moment, these virtual encounters might just be one of our most powerful new tools for inspiring the action we need to protect our very real and very fragile planet.